And with that, it would be my pleasure to introduce our speakers here today. Holly Callen, past district governor and fellow Rotarian, and Jack Zimmerman, a veteran. I'll introduce Holly, and I think I'm going to have her come up and introduce Jack to you. Holly was the founder and president of Callen and Associates Financial Services, which was an investment firm working in the areas of retirement planning, charitable giving, venture capital, and private placement offerings. She was also the director of development and fundraising for the University of Minnesota Women's Athletics Department, increasing scholarship dollars from $200,000 to over $2 million. She is a past district governor of Rotary District 5950, where she led a campaign to raise over $1 million towards Rotary's goal of eradicating polio. From 2017 to 2020, she served on the Rotary Foundation, on the Fund Development Committee, and as chair of the Donor Recognition, she helped the Rotary Foundation develop the Legacy Society for bequests in excess of $1 million. She's a proud member of the Eden Prairie Noon Rotary Club, where she serves as the foundation chair. She has since been retired since 2008 and also volunteers on boards of several nonprofit organizations, including Bravo Zulu, which you're about to hear about shortly, a sober living home for veterans suffering from PTSD and chemical dependency, and Established Foundation, a community foundation. She likes to read, bike, travel, and most recently to New Zealand and Melbourne, Australia for the 2023 Rotary Convention. And she can also be found playing with her 6-pound toy poodle, Maisie. Holly, do you want to come on up?
So do I have to stand behind here?
You don't have to because nobody's on Zoom, but this is where your PowerPoint's going to be.
Okay, I appreciate it. All right, well, we'll start from behind here just because. We'll see how this goes. Hi, and hi to so many people that I've known for quite a while. It's really fun to be here, including Ron from a totally different club. But yeah, I was district governor way back in 2001, too. So I'm a very old Rotarian. I've been a Rotarian for 33 years. And I've never gotten tired of Rotary because of the great friends and because of all the wonderful things that we do. Thank you. Oh, there we go. Where do I point this at, though?
Just click it.
Just click it and it'll change? Yep. Okay, well, I'm not ready yet. Okay. I'm just trying to figure out, first you have to be smarter than the, remote control. I can't promise that. But I'm here today to talk to you about one of the boards that I serve on, but frankly, it is the project that I am most passionate about, even more so than Rotary, if you can believe that, because it's a project that it will help our veterans, and we need to help our veterans who have served us so admirably over these many, many years. So, Bravo Zulu House, I'm going to tell you all about it. But first, I'd like to tell you Bravo Zulu House's, there we go. Bravo Zulu House's motto is, we're declaring war on PTSD. And I hope after you hear this presentation today, you'll all join me in the war on PTSD. And what are we trying to do to help our veterans? We want them to heal up, get stronger, and feel better. And rather than me telling you about this, I asked Jack Zimmerman if he would join us today. Jack is the chair of our advisory council because I'm not a veteran, and our project is Veterans Helping Veterans. So most of the people involved in this are veterans, and Jack has been so gracious to come from Mankato and tell you his story. Jack?
Thank you guys for having me here today. Thank you. Usually I'm holding a microphone and I do motivational speaking, and I always open up with, I always wanted to be a stand-up comedian, but motivational speaker is as close as I could get. But so I like to tell some jokes sometimes. But thank you guys for having me here today. It's truly an honor to come up here and represent Bravo Zulu House. When this thing was getting off the ground, I immediately wanted to be a part of this. When I got back from Afghanistan, where I was wounded in a complex ambush, I stepped on an IED over there while serving with the 101st Airborne Division. We were out gunfighting that day, and on the way home, We were walking across the plowed field and stepped on IED out there in the middle of the field, and I stayed conscious of the whole thing. And when I landed, I see my left arm was all blown out, and I needed a tourniquet, so I was trying to get with my right arm, and I looked over, my right arm was snapped in half and bleeding pretty good. And finally, when the guys jumped on me and started tourniqueting my arms off, and then they cut my gear off me, I sat up to get out of there, and that's when I realized that my right leg was completely tore off, and my left leg from the knee down was pretty much gone, you know. And those guys, this whole time we were under gunfire from the Taliban, and every time I share my story, it's a testament to those guys that drugged me off the battlefield that day, and they're the true heroes of that day. And they worked under me tirelessly under gunfire until I was medevacked off the field, put in a chopper. And when I landed at the airfield then, there's a surgeon in the back of the truck that they put me in between the chopper and the hospital. And the surgeon told me if I could stay awake for 5 more minutes, he promised me my life. And I said bet, obviously. I took that bet. And they took me in the operating room, and eventually the surgeon told me to count back from 10. And I watched my whole life flash before my eyes on the battlefield, as I really thought I was dying right before the chopper got there. When he told me to count back from 10, and not in such a nice way, I kind of told him to, you know, screw off, you know. My last memory on Earth wasn't going to be 1, because I didn't know if I was ever going to wake up again. And I watched my whole life flash before my eyes. I woke up 6 days later in San Antonio from an induced coma. I spent 2 weeks in the ICU, 8 weeks total in the hospital. But when I woke up in the hospital, the thing that always drove me every single day is I wanted to be worth saving. You know, those guys that risked their lives to save mine, I wanted to be worth saving. So every day I focused on building my attitude, which I could control, and shaping my perspective. Every time I had a bad thought, I realized how lucky I was, and I control my attitude, right? And that's what I worked on from that day and still to this day, every day. That's the message that I live with. We have an opportunity here in southern Minnesota to save a lot of these veterans that came home. You know, these guys went over there, risked it, put it on the line, and they didn't handle it like as well as some other people did. I'm very fortunate I don't have any PTSD. I've never claimed PTSD. I've never had a nightmare. I've never had a bad dream. I'm fortunate for that. But I know a lot of guys that do. And this is our opportunity to step in and help. These aren't the guys that are struggling with little things from day to day that need counseling and PTSD. These guys are the ones that found themselves in a program to help them get sober, focus on getting sober, their dependency, focus on their PTSD, their problem. And then they need somewhere to bridge that gap. They just can't go right back to the place that all these problems were at, right? They need to go find that middle ground. They may not have anywhere to go after treatment. And that's what this home provides. It provides a safe, comfortable, healthy environment with a counselor living there, helping them all the way through this to rebuild their lives, right? So there were so many people that surrounded me when I had to rebuild my life, and we can be those same people. And this is how I see a way of paying it forward for myself, is getting on board and doing stuff like this. So let's give these guys an opportunity to be saved, and they'll pay it forward, as just like I'm doing to those guys that saved my life. And my motto is build your attitude and shape your perspective, so one day when your life does flash before your eyes, it's worth watching. And every moment of this journey that I've spent trying to make this house happen and seeing this come through, those are memories that I know I'm going to hang on to forever. So thank you guys for having me here today, and I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Jack motivates me to do more every time I hear him speak. So thank you. Jack's written a couple books. Where can they find your book?
My website's the best place, jackzimmermanmn.com.
Okay, yeah. If you know of any veterans that are struggling, get them one of Jack's books and give it to him or her. We have women veterans too, don't forget. Okay. So why Bravo Zulu? Where did that come from? Well, besides being on the board of Bravo Zulu, I'm also on the board of Trinity Sober Homes. Now, Trinity started 12 years ago with one home in St. Paul, and then grew, and we now have 3 homes in St. Paul, along with the retreat center in southern Minnesota. Trinity has what our executive director calls the special sauce. It isn't just a sober living home. It provides additional opportunities for the men living there, and yes, women, I'm sorry, these are all men's homes. They do not have to be veterans, although we do have some veterans living there. And the rate of sobriety 1 year following treatment in this country is approximately 25 to 30%. The rate of sobriety over 12 years for Trinity Sober Homes is 71%. It's the highest in the country, acknowledged by every organization out there. So we thought, well, what's needed today? We don't need to open any more Trinity homes. We've, the market's full. But what isn't being served well are our veterans. We went to the veterans that live in Trinity and asked them, why don't we get more veterans living here? And they told us, well, part of it is, guys, PTSD and all that, but part of it is they feel, if they're combat veterans, they feel that nobody else will understand except another combat veteran. So we thought, well, let's open a home for veterans only. But then we thought, well, there's got to be, homes all over. Isn't there a need? So we looked. Well, according to the VA, and the numbers come from the VA, there will be 360,000 veterans diagnosed with PTSD and addiction. Since 9/11, because they've really been tracking these numbers, there have been 7,500 active military that have died, whether in combat, training, or just accidents that happen. At the same time, that same period of time, 37,000 have committed suicide. And the VA says that 22 veterans a day are committing suicide somewhere in the U.S. as we speak. So, there must be homes dealing with this, right? Well, we looked. There are 0 all military sober homes with PTSD treatment in the United States. 0. And the need is obviously enormous. So what's our model? Now, it's based on the Trinity model, remember? Okay. We are a 501c3 nationally recognized nonprofit. For Bravo Zulu, we are partnering with all of the veteran organizations. We have the Legion, the VFW, the DAV, they're all on board and working with us and donating and helping. The Band of Military Veterans that I talked about a moment ago, that will be Bravo Zulu House. Like Trinity, all of the homes that we have are beautiful homes, decorated beautifully, and every man has a private room. Now that's really important when you're dealing with PTSD, and as Jack mentioned, whether it's nightmares or other issues, or just living in a group environment, it's nice to have somewhere you can go when you need some quiet time. We will have PTSD counseling. Now, this is interesting because the home is in, and I'll show you the home in a second, the home is in Winnebago, Minnesota. How many of you know we're in Winnebago, Minnesota? Wow, I'm just impressed because I had no idea where it was. But it's in southern Minnesota, due north of Blue Earth, about 25 miles from Fairmont. Did I get that right? Oh, you're a Blue Earth guy. Okay. Well, the reason I mentioned Fairmont, there's a Rotary Club in Fairmont. There isn't in Blue Earth. So get down there and start one, would you please? Anyway, Rotary has been very involved in Fairmont, and we have, I didn't put it in here, but we have a sheet that shows all of the organizations and corporations in that area that are contributing, whether by gifting kind or actual dollars, to Bravo Zulu House. One of them, which isn't right in that area, it's in Rochester, Minnesota, we all know it, the Mayo Clinic. The Mayo Clinic has signed on to do virtual PTSD counseling and has said they will handle all the medical needs of our residents. Now, we'd have to get them obviously there, unless it can be virtual, but that's a big deal, okay? We have, just like Trinity, spiritual coaching. Now, it was interesting when you, where did it go? When you gave the opening, because spiritual coaching is not necessarily religious coaching. We don't call it religious coaching. It's not a religious organization. What spiritual coaching is, if you look at the AA model, and I'm very familiar with that because my husband just celebrated 50 years of sobriety. Yay, on Tuesday, so yeah. It's the higher power. If a guy comes in and says, I'm Catholic and I want a priest, okay, we have a priest on the list who will do spiritual counseling. But if a person comes in and says, you know, I'm an agnostic or an atheist, I really don't believe in that, well, what do you like? I mean, what do you feel? You know, I'm kind of a nature guy. We were just talking about that, Jack and I. We want to be out in nature. It means okay, we have someone that can work with you on spiritual counseling through that. All you have to have is a higher power. It never said it has to be this God, this particular God, right? So they get private. This is what's made Trinity so special, by the way. Nobody else does this. It's private every 2 weeks, an hour with your spiritual counselor. Because they say that the largest problem with staying sober in AA is not being able to relate to a higher power. Yeah. We will have hydroponic farming and dog therapy, and I'll come back to that in a minute. So, we are building this house. Anyone ever heard of a house? You've heard of it? I never heard of that either. I must be living under a rock. A house or a barn dominium. But basically, I'm told that they're building more of these in southern Minnesota than they are stick-built houses. And it's basically the combination of a shed and a house, a great big shed that is then converted inside to a house. But one of the things that it has an advantage of is that you can put in a safe room. And this one will have, I don't know which room it is, but it's somewhere in the front. A room that's basically a concrete box, so that in the event that a tornado comes through, which you know they do, and you've got guys in wheelchairs who can't get down to the basement, because there's a full basement here too, that's the safe room where they can go. But it will also be a room that can be used for meetings or whatever when there are no tornadoes. There will be 13 bedrooms, 12 for the individual veterans and 1 for a counselor who will also be a veteran. There will be 4 fully accessible bathrooms. There will be a wheelchair lift to go from the first floor to the second floor, and you should feel proud of that because I just put in a grant request for, I go next week to make the presentation, a $40,000 wheelchair lift that will be funded by 6 Rotary clubs and a district grant, okay? And why? Well, because no veteran, we don't ever want to turn away a veteran in need because we're not accessible. It has to be accessible to all. We'll have a large meeting room, a community kitchen, a separate counseling room, the safe room I mentioned, there'll be outdoor space, and as I said, it's fully accessible. Now, here's what I want you to hear about today. Why dog therapy? Well, several studies have shown that dog therapy helps veterans with PTSD, actually helps anyone with PTSD. Where will we get the dogs? Well, first of all, we have a wonderful trainer who's from Blue Earth, who herself, she is not a veteran only because she had health issues and was turned away from both the Marines and the Army and was heartbroken because her entire family are veterans, and she, you know, grandfather Vietnam, father, I forget which one, and 2 female cousins who are in the Marines right now. But now she is volunteering to serve her time helping veterans with dog therapy. And her grandfather, the Vietnam veteran, said to her, see, this is how you can serve. So she's ecstatic. Ava is her name. So she will meet with each veteran individually when he moves into the house and find out what his likes and dislikes, what his needs are, and then go out and select a dog for him. Now, where will she get the dogs? they're going to be rescue dogs. So when you donate to the dog program, you're actually saving 2 lives, the dog and the veteran. It's a win-win. She'll work individually with each man to train his dog. He will be responsible for feeding and caring of the dog. The dog will be responsible for loving him. It's pretty simple. I wanted to read you something. Oh, and can he take the dog when he leaves? Absolutely. We encourage it. If he's not able to, for whatever reason, we will keep the dog and either reassign the dog if it's a dog that can be, easily, or we will find a proper home for the dog. So someone donated the other day, 2 days ago, online to the dog program. We don't know where this person even got our name. She's from Northfield, Minnesota. And she wrote, when she donated, you can write a note, and she wrote, "When Aaron came home from Iraq, our girl Frankie supported him in ways no human could. Despite being gone for 2 years, she jumped into his arms, all 90 pounds of her. She listened for hours without judging, walked for miles without tiring, and loved without rules. Frankie saved him over and over again simply by being there and never giving up. Dogs are truly a miracle. We were so lucky to have her in our life and wish every veteran is able to experience the love only a dog can give." There you go. So why am I here? Why am I doing this? I have an 8-pound toy poodle. She's not 6 pounds anymore. She's all the way up to 8. But I'll tell you what, I don't know what I'd do without that dog in my life, and I don't suffer from PTSD. I did once, actually. I know what that's like, but not from combat, not that bad. So here's another one we got. There was an article in the Star Tribune. We've had a lot of articles and things about us. And after this woman read the article, she answered you can answer right through the Tribune. We blocked out her information, but she said, "My dad took his life due to PTSD. He was a Vietnam vet. He was the best dad ever, and I love everything about this house and just read your article in the Star Tribune. I just want to say Bravo Zulu and thank you, Christina." So do we have any Navy vets here? What does Bravo Zulu mean?
Well done.
Well done. That is why we named it Bravo Zulu. So how can you help? Well, on the table, there's a sheet that's kind of we call it our one-pager, a little bit about Bravo Zulu. But if you turn it over, on the other side, this is on the other side. It talks about some of the things that will be bought. If you go on the website, there's more, starting with $85,000 if you want to buy the kennel. But there's a whole list of ways to donate, and the QR code will take you directly to that page, as will the link. I hope you'll join us. I hope that Bloomington Rotary, unfortunately, I talked to Dwayne. By the way, I've known Dwayne since he was in college. Why have I known Dwayne that long? Because I was district governor when Dwayne applied for his grant to be an ambassadorial scholar, and I approved it. And a year later, when he was supposed to go, he couldn't go then, so he asked Rotary for a year extension, and they said no. And I went, yes, we're not going to let that happen. And I got a hold of my contacts at Rotary, and they gave him the extension. So he got to go on the ambassadorial scholar, and here he is serving as your club president. Yeah, isn't that a good story? So yeah, so I was sorry he's not here today, but I've loved Dwayne for many, many years. You can tell him that. Anyway, I'm hoping that Bloomington Rotary will also make a donation. We were a little late because trying to get, because of the turnover time, how Rotary, July 1st, June 30th, and trying to get the grant done in time to be able to get the money, to be able to put it in, it's a whole complicated process. But, so we couldn't come today and ask you to donate to the wheelchair grant, but there are 6 other Rotary clubs that have donated, including Fairmont and No Club in Blue Earth. And we hope you'll be the lead club and jump in on the dog project, because I haven't spoken to any other Rotary clubs yet about that. But also individual gifts are much, I mean, we are so grateful for every dollar that comes in to help our veterans. Are there questions I can answer?
I'll just throw one thing. In the legal profession, we have like 4 times the adult alcoholism rate and 6 times the adult suicide rate. And I've had a chance to do 4 interventions, with people over the years, including the last one who said, well, I'll only go if you come with me to the first meeting.
Yeah.
And at that first meeting, I observed that I was kind of expecting kind of a morose thing where everybody was a downer and stuff. But most of these people who had all lost, hit the bottom one way or another, with, losing a marriage, losing many jobs sometimes, they were very upbeat and very cheerful and all. And I don't know if the PTSD has a different impact, or do you find like at a Bravo Zulu House with veterans with both sometimes addiction and PTSD, that there's still a real upbeat mood because they're on the way back?
Well, I don't know, because we haven't opened it yet. We're opening in hopefully February. We're hoping to open sooner, but all the rain in southern Minnesota really screwed up. We own the property and everything, but it really screwed up getting things done in time. But I can tell you that I already lost my train of thought. Oh, that the VA, when people would come into the VA for PTSD treatment, the VA would say to them, yes, we have groups, we have that. But the first question they would be asked is, are you self-medicating with drugs and alcohol? And the VA told us that 75 to 90% admit that they're self-medicating. They think it's more like 90% really are self-medicating. So what they tell them is, go get sober, because it won't work. The treatment won't work. You're covering it up. Go get sober and then come back. And just like Jack said, where do they go? There's nowhere to go. If they go back into the same environment, I don't care if it's their family or if it's they're living on the street, it really doesn't matter. They'll be under the same stresses, and 98% will return to self-medicating. So we're trying to bridge that gap. The VA has said to us, we think you've got something here, but we can't throw government money at it until you prove it. We have received phone calls from Nebraska, South Dakota, Arizona, Florida, and I'm sure there are more, saying we want the next one. And our answer is, we are happy to do that, but we're building one in a row, because we need to get it open and see. I'm sure there's things we're missing. There always is, right? And we need to get it open and operated for a year or so and see how we can improve it or tweak it, or maybe it's perfect. The reason I wanted Rotary involved, and I pushed so hard to get that done, is because there's Rotary clubs in almost every town around this country. And these homes are in rural areas for a couple reasons. One reason being that when you're dealing with PTSD, you don't want the city noises of backfires and kids out there screaming and all those sorts. You want it quiet. Secondly, we want the dog therapy, and you can't have 12 dogs at a house in, St. Paul or Minneapolis, Bloomington. You can't have one in Bloomington. And thirdly, the hydroponic farming is another thing we're adding, because it's another way of therapy, to dig in the dirt, to raise something positive, and we'll provide both some means of employment once it's up and running for some of the guys, and some food, both for the house itself, and if they raise enough, to sell. And maybe they'll sell in a farmer's market or something that'll get more visibility. I want Rotary to be aware of this, because clubs all over this country should be involved in starting a Bravo Zulu House. And we'd be happy to help them. Yes?
I see one of your partners is DAV. We get a lot of cards and we donate, give a lot of stuff. So if we donate to DAV, stuff that we give them, so how much of that goes to you?
Goes to us?
Yeah, because you said they're a partner, that they contribute to you, so if
Well-
we're donating to them, that's having
Well-
some effect maybe to you?
I don't think the DAV actually contribute, but I do know what happens with the clothes, because I asked that, because I donate to them too. And they said 100% of it is sold, and they a lot of times just box it up and sell it to somebody else. And all of that money goes to the transportation they provide for helping veterans get to, like the VA, get to medical and treatment. So that's where that money goes. Now, they're not donating to us, but they are helping us by supporting us, by getting out and speaking. American Legion posts are donating to us. That's a little different kind of organization, and they are donating.
Local DAVs are as well, just not the national one. The local DAVs are
They are?
donating as well, just not at just the national. DAV has given us their seal of approval and saying that they support this project 100%, but
That's-
any money sent to DAV is going to go towards the DAV's mission. And
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
But having that approval, being able to put it on our materials and all, it just is one more thing. Yeah.
You probably,
What would it take to get the federal government to contribute and support this? I mean, they're the ones who are supposed to be funding the Defense Department.
So what's happening is these guys, a lot of these guys that are going to be in this house are going to go to St. Cloud first, and they're going to get treatment at St. Cloud to do a dual diagnosis up there. So they're going to get their PTSD and substance abuse issues dealt with there. And when they leave there, they need to continue their counseling. They need to continue their new life. But a lot of times, as they move back into the house with their spouse that they're getting a divorce with, or there's going to be a million triggers there every single day. It's going to be frustrating, not well. It's not a good place to move back into. There's guys that are going to have anywhere to go into. They're going to find them living in their cars or whatever. This is the house that bridges that gap between whatever, from the VA to whatever is next for them in life. This house is that transitional period. It's transitional housing, not permanent housing.
I guess my question is, well, why isn't the federal government or the VA supporting this? Because it's like if you get discharged from the hospital, you get sent to a nursing home or someplace that insurance is going to cover or somebody's going to cover.
Well, it's interesting. The head of the VA right now is Dennis McDonough. Dennis is from St. Paul. Dennis's brother was Rob's priest. I mean, and they're still close friends. I know him very well, Kevin. And so when we started working on this, we called Kevin. Kevin, can you get us to your brother, blah, blah, blah. And he told us that his brother sat them all down in the family, and it's a big family, and said to them, I'm taking this job. I can't listen to any suggestions or ideas from you. It's such a big institution, the process, you can't, I can't just go in there and tell them, well, we do this, so we have to do that. But what he has told them, and what the head of the St. Paul, whatever that is, Minneapolis VA, has told Tim Murray, our executive director, he met with him recently, is if you prove this concept, just get us some numbers, some real numbers, I can find you some grant money. So we think it will grow.
Basically, the gist of it is they're not doing it, and somebody needs to, so that's why we're doing it,
They
It
said
doesn't
that.
matter why they're, I mean, we can fight for it, but you know how anything works. It'll be years and years and years, and you see the numbers. Every day there's 22 that we're losing a day. We have to do something now.
Yeah, and they admit it. The VA admits it. They said, the exact words were, you may have something here. Hello?
Would the St. Cloud Treatment Center eventually become a referral? Would they refer to you guys when you're up and running, do you think?
Yeah, I'd imagine that would be. So, I helped stand up the 5th Judicial Veterans Court, right? For guys that found themselves wrapped up in the criminal system, this and that, most of the time they go right from jail to St. Cloud, right? They spend 90 days, 120 days, whatever it is that they need for wherever they're at. For the person that you drop off, the person that you pick up, you won't recognize them and you won't know that person. They will be a completely changed person when they leave that place. The difference is when they go to a place like transitional housing like this, they come back to the 5th Judicial, they move in on somebody's couch, they don't have the stability that they even had even close to when they were in treatment. Things like that. They just don't have anything in life, no structure all of a sudden once they leave treatment. They were doing so well. Places like the 5th Judicial Court are going to refer people like this. The VA can refer people like this. A lot of guys aren't even going to know about this program until they end up in St. Cloud, because most of the guys aren't going to go looking for halfway houses before they even went to treatment, right? That they're worried about finding their next fix before they're worried about where they're going to move after treatment, you know? And I was a mentor coordinator for almost 10 years with the 5th Judicial Veterans Court down there, and housing is the biggest issue, and usually once housing is figured out for these guys, employment comes next, and next thing you know, these guys are really rock and rolling on a new path, and everything in their life is coming back together. But when you leave treatment, you have nowhere to go, and you have no plan, and you have no safe place at all to sleep at night, and you don't have anywhere to put your things, and you're dragging everything around with you. It's a very difficult life, you know? And this place provides them a place to put their things down, be surrounded by like-minded people that are focused on helping them become the best version of themselves, you know?
All of our residents will be referred by, they'll all be coming out of treatment and will be referred by the treatment centers. Could be from anywhere in Minnesota. We want to spread the word. But Fairmont Hospital was one of the first to sign on, and they have a treatment program there. And they are very excited about it. I did not know this, but Martin County, which is that area, has the highest percentage per capita of veterans, they told me, in the country. I don't know if that's true, but it's definitely true in Minnesota. And so they are very supportive, and they are very anxious for this to get open.
There's only 128 people in the county, too. No, I'm just kidding.
There's more than that. There's got to be 135.
Bigger than it used to be.
Yes.
A couple of things. A few months back, I read an article in the American Legion magazine about an older gentleman whose wife had died and he moved into assisted living. He was a fighter pilot in World War II. He had no symptoms of PTSD until he moved into this facility, because all of the family support that he had had for years had all of a sudden gone, which just highlights the importance of having someone, something, a dog that you care about and cares about you. And the second thing is, I get a lot of medical care from the VA here in Minneapolis, so I don't want anyone to get the idea that the VA doesn't do a good job. They do a fantastic job. There are holes, just like there are holes in any kind of system, but I'm very appreciative of that.
Well, thank you.
And the third one is 101st Vietnam, 502nd.
Same.
Thank you for your service. And my husband is a Vietnam veteran, and he also goes to the VA, and the VA is wonderful. I usually go with him to the appointments. They really do a good job. It's nothing like you may have heard. Or we were living in Arizona for a while. I think a lot of you know that. And the VA there got in a lot of trouble. But Minnesota, we know what we're doing here. Oh. Yes.
Howdy, what's your timeline on this with the house?
It's,
House and dogs, I mean, what's your estimate, your best estimate?
well, the house we're hoping to open around the 1st of February. Again, weather permitting. I mean, we have to get we've got all the contractors, everything is lined up. And donations like a lumberyard that's giving us $100,000 of lumber. I mean, we have all kinds of stuff ready to go. But we have to be able to pour a foundation, and they're just finally now being able to do it, because you can't pour a foundation and when it's In mud, right. And so we're getting ready to go. Now, we don't technically need the dogs or want the dogs till we have people. So, and they're not all it's not going to be 12 guys on day open, moving. We don't want them all doing that, moving in at once. But we will start getting the dogs as soon as we have the need to have a veteran for a dog. And so let's say February. But first, we need to build a dog kennel. We have a building, it's a prefab, we don't have to build it. But again, we have to pour a foundation, or a slab, really. And it will accommodate 12 dogs, both inside and outside, state-of-the-art with water and heat and, all of that. Will the dogs come in the house? When we first started this, Tim said, well, we don't want the dogs in the house, 12 dogs, they'll make them. I said, Tim, you're dealing with PTSD. Do you think that man isn't going to want his dog sleeping next to him? Oh, yeah. Well, we still need the kennel because, one of the requirements for any our other sober living homes is you have to get a job working 30 hours a week or volunteering 30 hours a week. Now, some of those will be working in the hydroponic farming. We will have a van. We can take them into Mankato or Fairmont or whatever for a job. The counselor can drive the van. And so the dogs have to have somewhere to go. Plus, we're going to have the outdoor area for the dogs so that the dogs can, my dog's at doggy daycare right now. I dropped her off on my way here. She's got to have time to play with the puppies, right? She's the smallest dog there, and she's in charge. It's hysterical. At any rate, we will get going this spring, let's put it that way. We hope by summer to be completely full. We ask the veterans to give us 6 months minimum commitment. We expect the average stay to be about 18 months. No one has to leave unless they start using, right? It's a sober home. And that is a zero tolerance policy for sober homes. But we have a guy in Trinity that's been there since we opened 11 years ago. Because it's a nice place to live, and he has no family, and he's an older guy, and, and he works and brings. They will pay $500 a month rent. One of the things that my husband and I did for his 40th anniversary of sobriety is we started a fund called the Pay It Forward Fund. And that was to help guys get into the home because there's a sober living deposit and first month's rent. So it's about $1,000. And we raised about $27,000. There's about $8,500 left. We switched it over to Bravo Zulu because we don't know, and we'll raise more if we need to. We don't know yet, again, one of the unknowns, what the guys will need. Some of them may have family and wherewithal. Some of them may have private insurance. Some of them may have VA insurance. We don't know. So have me come back in a year and I'll answer all those questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Jack, for coming all the way up from Mankato to speak with us. With that, we are adjourned.